welcome. Thank you for coming on to the Catapult podcast and being part of us looking about how we design a themed resort. We've created a fictional theme park called Pirate Cove. The idea is that we've created some beautiful concepts. We've looked really deep into the master plan and the narrative, and a big part of this attraction that we wanted to create was around a hotel as well. So Victoria and Alice, who've been leading the charge on the themed room and have subsequently designed the bathroom of my dreams at the same time. It's both amazing to have you on the call and to discuss how you've done stuff. First of all, Victoria, just give us a sense of how we've taken like the essence of Pirate Cove as a theme park land and sort of translated it into a themed resort and a hotel that people can stay in.
Yes, thanks, Robbie. So, as some of the previous notes that Andy Sinclair Harris and James and Haley have touched upon, we really wanted to celebrate an array of different worlds and different cultures coming together. And so, this was just sort of a piece of that puzzle to sort of bring together this whole master plan. So, this particular area needed to make sense in terms of that storytelling. So, with that, James helped curate this beautiful big idea where if I just read it out, it says, check into the ancient palace on the edge of Pirate Cove. These once deserted halls are now home to the hubbub of pirate life as travelers from around the world meet, trade tales, and spend the night. Discover your own cabin filled with splendors from distant ports and places to play below deck. The perfect spot to plot the course of your next voyage and extend your adventure of Pirate Cove. And I think that's such a beautiful representation of what we're talking about here, in that it is an extension, it's a palace, it has an element of luxury with it, but we still always have that pirate ethos at heart. And I think that's part of what we were trying to do in terms of this world building and make it unique to the land, but also make it still familiar to what would be expected from guests. So in terms of what we do, obviously we cover the array of our big idea bundles. So what that is that looks like in terms of our sort of key deliverables that we offer is we always focus on the what is it at its heart, why are we doing this, and then the wish fulfillment. So the what this particular section of the land is a bespoke pirate themed hotel. Drawing the guests into their own adventure with interactives and built-in play opportunities. So that's what, at the heart of it, what we were trying to do. And why? Just because we really wanted to extend that story of Pirate Cove, so providing guests with a chance to escape into adventure from the moment they check in. So there's really that transitional space. Whatever you have in the real world, you're now starting to enter this really fun, playful, imaginative place. And I think the key thing for us is that we still wanted to spark adventure within all of us. And I think that was pretty much at the heart of what when we were doing when we came to the design for it. And then finally, wish fulfillment. I think we all chatted through this and what we expected as guests. So really just trying to pull all of those together and trying to hear each team member and what they would expect when we talk about a guest room and a hotel.
Yeah, I think that, first of all, I think the wish fulfillment's really interesting here with the hotel design. Obviously, we know from a client or an operator perspective that this is a key part of pushing secondary spend. It's there to grow, affinity as well as the ability to tell different stories. But I guess where we start more, Victoria, is this element of guest first and making sure that we're designing something for people and those micro moments in their experience that is just going to make them walk away singing with joy. And as you mentioned, we've added a little bit of gamification in there. It's not just about the kids, it's about the adults as well. And that's just as important, isn't it? Because when we're designing a theme park, it's not just about kids, is it? We want adults to have fun as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I think when we do get into the details of this particular space, I think we have tried to keep the particular guest audience members in mind. So the layout that we've actually selected is it's two specific rooms. So we intentionally picked one that was more for the adults and then one that was like a kid space. So it's more of like it's not your standard guest room. It's more of like your additional upsell suite that you're looking at. So we really wanted to make sure that we had those two specific zones. But ironically, in that when we did start to look at those two different guest profiles, I think you could actually look at any sort of individual staying in the kids' room. I think it really taps into your sort of inner child and wanting to go back to that time where you want to be imaginative, you want to be playful, and you want to bring joy in those very just young, mindful ways. And I think that's where it becomes really fun. And yes, our key demographic was family, but at the same time, I was talking to Alice about this, that we would 100% like, I would bring a group of my friends, and I think we'd be fighting over the room and wanting to spend the time in that little kids section, because it's almost like that bunk bed hideout sort of attribute towards it. And it just makes it so much fun, and a sense of, team, and a sense of like, really, you are doing this together and you're experiencing and playing together. And I think that's what makes it so joyous.
Amazing. So, in terms of the theme and statement of the hotel, so a crumbling palace architecture embellished and bolstered with salvage pirate treasure and woodwork. And the narrative. So, a pirate crew have raided their ship to transform one of the palace staterooms into their home away from home. So we're building in that backstory. So we were able to tell that rich storytelling that exists in the theme park land. Valiant and playful suite designed to fulfill the dreams of pirates young and old, which is exactly what we've just been talking about. Victoria, just to talk us through what we're seeing here, the guest room suite from a bird's eye view.
Yes, thanks. So we did an extensive amount of research in seeing what's out there currently in the market. So we tapped into a lot of those people that really excelling in this sort of field. So we looked at layouts and hotels from like Universal to Disney, to try and see which layout would be the best fit for what we were trying to do here. And so we took inspiration from a lot of those research and insights that I just mentioned, and we adapted it to what we thought would be best fit for this particular resort. So as we sort of tapped into, we've got a centralized corridor leading into the space, and just to the left of it, so just on the top left, you can see that that's where we've got the bathroom. So this would be a shared bathroom, but it's almost acting a little bit as that ensuite to the parents' room. Which then through the corridor, that's where you lead into the main sort of space, which is your master bedroom or your parents' bedroom, but it also has a little bit of a communal area. So you can see in the bottom left of that parents' room, there's some seating, so some tables and chairs for if you are to do a little bit of that dining in room. So like if you're getting that room service or anything, or if you're bringing food back from one of the opportunities in the park. So there is that opportunity there, as well as that extension of that balcony that wraps around both spaces, which we would hope that overlooks that park, so you still get a little bit of that ambiance and aesthetic feeding into the space. And then in the bottom corner, that's where you have that kids' room. So you've got a couple of beds there. So you can see at the bottom strip there, there's two beds, but we also integrated some pull-out beds as well. So this essentially could sleep six if we wanted to, but ultimately it should comfortably sit for guests or for a family of four.
And I guess as part of what we do for master planning, but also any sort of design where we really need to go deep into the storytelling and really get that aesthetic right for the theme that we're creating, mood boards is obviously a massive part of our workflow. So Victoria, maybe just talk us through again some of the intricate inspirations that we've used, because something that Andy, our creative director, spoke about, which is using the theme and topic of pirates, but not necessarily doing the stereotypical version. We've gone a little bit broader, haven't we, in
Yes.
terms of where we've picked up inspiration from.
Yeah, so mood boards is fundamental to our process. I think we go deep. We do a lot of deep diving in trying to find the right visual, the right references, something that really is ticking the boxes for what we're looking for in terms of that design brief. So this whole part of the process evolves as also the design evolves. So, but you have to have a starting point, and that's where mood boards are really helpful for us, is that you really do get the look and feel and the flavor of what we're trying to achieve here. And I can tell you right now, Alice and the whole team, like this is not the first mood board that we did. That this design evolved throughout the process, and we iterated and iterated until where we felt comfortable. And sometimes we did the mood board, we did the design, and then we go back to the mood board and refine it based on what actually is working well in the space. So mood boards, absolutely, a really huge part of it. It really is that sort of brain dump of ideas where we're trying to see and feel what is working well for what we're trying to achieve in terms of that story. A lot of it, particularly for this type of design, is an interior design treatment, but the additive layer of it is really that storytelling. And so how are we feeding into that? So this summation of the mood board really taps into that narrative that we just talked about, where there's an element of that opulence of a palace that you can see in a few of these images, but then there is this almost age deteriorating wear and tear that you see in a lot of these visuals as well, which again feeds back to that narrative. But then you can see glimmers of elements that are adding to that sort of pirate trove. So you've got some of these light fixtures, you've got the pirate hat, you've got this sort of collection of really ornate or, a pool of objects that you can find throughout the world. And so there's so many things in these visuals. Like one image does tell the story, but then there's so many, when you start to pull all of these together, there's bits and pieces from each image that helps sort of piece that visual language together. And so I think that's why we always start here alongside the narrative, because it really helps it give us our foundations that we can then start to pull. Oh, well, actually, I really like this small piece in this one visual that I'm going to take and I'm going to move it to the final design. So there's a lot of balance when it comes to sort of curating these.
So we've got the captain's quarters, which Victoria said is the parents' room. Below deck, the kids' room, and then obviously the bathroom, which we've called Smooth Sailing, which I think is just a brilliant name. But yeah, do you want to talk us through just some of these visuals and some of the things that we've done for the captain's quarters, if I just scale through into some of these renders?
Sure, yeah. So it's the captain's quarters idea was something that we stumbled upon immediately, I think, in our earliest meetings. It was the phrase that everyone kept using. I think it's interesting because that's kind of the adult dream of a pirate suite. As everyone goes, you want to be in the captain's quarters where all the good spoils are, where you're in the grandest part of the ship. Everyone's got that image of like deep velvet curtains. And I think for this, we had so much fun because early on, when you're doing the first ideation, you talk about, well, like, where are you in the hotel room? Are you on the ship? Are you like a part of it and how you sell that together? But as soon as we developed the master plan and we had this idea of the palace and the lost palace and the bones of that, we had so much to play with, okay, a pirate comes aboard, what do they fill their suite with to make it their own? So all the best finds and all the best parts of the cabin are brought into here. And I think it's you get to mix the sort of grandeur of the original palace with layers of different pirates over time. So I think that's key to everything. Like if you think about pirate costumes and like aesthetics, it's all about the layering. And I think giving ourselves that base of the palace allows you to layer different wallpapers with who's been before, tiles or marks from where tiles have come off the wall. Nothing quite matches. You've got different drapes, different finishes, furniture that looks like it's come from different parts of the world. And the whole point is to say if a pirate was decorating this, it would be found objects and it would be the best treasure that they kept in their suite. And it's very fun that we gave this to the parents because, like Victoria said, um, a lot of suites focus on having like a kid focused room, but this was a focus on both. And so much of what we do at Catapult is about invitations to play. And I think if you create a room that has the kind of wish fulfillment for the adults and the wish fulfillment for the kids, you sort of create an immediate inspiration for them to play together. And I really think this room does that. And then as you go through, there's just more and more detail, I'd say. And I wanted to make sure that this was like a sleepable room. So should feel cozy and grand when you go in there, and also have all these hidden details. I think it's the kind of suite you want from a pirate experience where every person that goes in could sort of take on something different from each object. We talked a lot about how kids can pull a lot of narrative inspiration from things. They don't need too much to build a story around. And I think that's true in here as well. There's lots of details that different people will focus on. I think you'll be able to see the sort of line from the mood board into this room where we have this huge sort of scaffolded support above the bed of these painted wood boards with a mural. And that mural is its own design in itself. And it's the kind of thing that you get to look at before you head to bed. Love putting a little detail over the bed like that. But I think the key to this was making it feel both grand and like to an extent cozy and relaxing, making sure it's a base camp, but not like pulling back on too much of the pirate stuff. I think if the parent gets to be the captain of the ship and you give them the sort of feeling of being a crew for their holiday, you give them a very grand beginning for their adventure.
And even that armchair, I can imagine parents sitting on there and pretending to be the captain, dictating children, dictating friends. You can see some really lovely moments just within this room alone. And yeah, the potential for the stained glass window as well is amazing. And Victoria, we've worked on a couple of projects before where we've looked at sort of AV or projection shadow play behind windows. So the potential to maybe do something like that with rooms that are internally facing, whether that's a pirate walking past or a shadow of a pirate walking past, is so much potential, isn't there?
Absolutely. And I think if you give the surface or the opportunity to do those things, then that's really, again, where the story can come in. So these sort of glass planes either side of a bed, you can also create a certain atmosphere by introducing all soundscape or lighting, all these different elements just to help also just transition the spaces into different aesthetics. I think the gloss in particular, this project was almost a little bit of a passion project for Alice. So you'll see a lot of passions from her own personal life into this. So Alice is a big fan of gloss and stained gloss. So they, introducing these sort of elements was an easy win for us because the level of detail was just brought in through passion. And those, the little swords on top of it, it's just a small little nods to such the iconography that you see throughout Pirates and their lives. It's just like the attention to detail is superb. And again, just allowing for those opportunities for platforms, for lighting and for sounds and all of those things to really come alive is such a great opportunity, I think, to just give the space another dimension.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's a parent's dream. Absolutely
I
is.
think what's also really interesting is that there's a level of hierarchy when we talk about pirates. So you have your captains and then you have your crew. And in some ways, we've also introduced that similarly within like a family dynamic. You obviously have your parents, which are more of the authoritative figure, and so giving them that platform, but in a slightly different lens. And I think that's a really interesting dynamic that it's transferred into like family life, but also in the culture of pirates and that sort of dynamic that happens there. So it was really fun to play with as well.
Amazing. Such a lovely room. It really is. And then we go on to Below Deck. So thinking about the kids, if I just move past into the key renders. So Alice, talk us through some of the little bits here that you absolutely adored to put in the design.
Yeah, I mean, the kids' room was a treat because, like, we all talked about our dream for the captain's quarters as an adult, but as a kid, it was the play and exploration and like the finding treasure and all that kind of adventure stuff. And I thought it sort of came naturally that below deck, where like the mischief happens, is where the kids stay. And I think this is an absolute treasure trove of objects because if you've got in the captain's quarters, you've got the real curated like jewels. You've got things that are worth something that the captain's kept. But here you have just all the treasure that's been kept by the crew. So like under the bed, we've just filled it with like clutter. I think there's like Roman vases down there and carpets and things that like could be completely considered treasure, but are just hoarded away like a kind of dragon's hoard. And scattered around the bed. It's important that kids that come in here feel like it's very lived in and can like look amongst all of these objects and find something new every time. Like there's sort of hidden signage, stolen postcards from different locations. One of my favorites is a stolen painting that's hung. That's a real world stolen painting that I sort of kept a list of stolen masterpieces. And so if we could sneak any in, and there's one in the kids' room that's been drawn all over to turn the guy into a pirate, just in case we were wondering when we visit whatever happened to that painting. It's here. The pirates took it to the island. We'll never see it again. But it was important. It should be a lived in space and it should feel like you can sort of move things and find things along the way. And even the bare bones of it are different. The parents' room has that base of the Grand Palace where you've got all the cornicing and arches, but the kids' room is all pulled back from that. And you've got this kind of wooden pirate structure that's potentially holding the ceiling up, where they've brought in their own bunks and ladders and ropes, and they're building their own sort of nest and pirate sort of home for themselves within the castle. And I think like no furniture, everything's been built from sort of stacks of objects. I think it feels like a curated space and specifically a kid's space, even though, as Victoria said, I would 100% pay to stay in here and fight my friends for a bunk. It's just, it should feel like adventures are on everything and every item can lead you to a story. And like, I hope that's what it does.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And there's an element of sophistication as well that's crept through into the design where thinking about a slightly older child audience, so if we're talking about teenagers, there's still that feeling of being involved in the world, immersed in pirates, but it isn't really childlike.
Mm.
There's an invitation to play, but for an audience that can be quite hard to please in the teenage market.
Yeah, I think it sort of is interactive as you want it to be. You can definitely see all the elements that could lead to sort of a full kind of kids play in here, but it also just brings you into that world. And I also think some people forget that like the hotel room is where you go to when you're done in a theme park, and theme parks can be very overwhelming spaces. So a little bit of pulling back where you need to give people like a cozy space and like a restful space at the same time as offering them as much play as you want, as they would want, is kind of useful. And
Excellent.
then
And then, yeah, I was just going to mention about the fact that this room has the flexibility to host more people.
yes, pull-out beds wherever you can find them. And I think the benefit of these is they feel really integrated. We talked about hammocks for a while, and there is a hammock chair in there, but I think there's no lesser experience from being kind of like bunked down with all of the spoils from the journeys. And I think, and little details we've added, like the lovely patchwork, all the fabrics in here should be sort of patched together. Nothing is a complete finished object, even though the rug is patched together. And I think these give like imagine sort of four kids, four friends bunking into it. You'll feel like a crew bunking down together, and they don't feel too much like add-ons, which is something I was hopeful for.
Yeah, fantastic. And what I love most about this room is the amount of space in between the beds and the walls. So there is more space to play. So, we know that kids, as you mentioned, they're going to have a full day at a theme park. They need that downtime. It's the ability for them to play by themselves or read a book or whatever. Or if it was 8-year-old Robbie, I'd want to do a sword fight with my brother. And
Yes,
it gives
Absolutely.
that rug is the invitation to fight.
yeah. And maybe you walk the plank off of a bunk bed. Who's to say?
Why not? Why not? I think I'd lose that. My brother's a little bit bigger than me. And finally, and something that we've put a lot of thought in, we do this as well with other themed resorts that we have worked on. But the bathroom can't just be left behind when it comes to a themed environment. So, Alice, what have we took forward from the story, but also made sure that we've done within this room to create something that is, again, sophisticated, on brand, but it's just actually a really nice area?
Hmm. I think bathrooms are so important to be that really nice area as well, like a bit of respite. So what we took forward from here from the theme was this idea of the sort of travel and magic of pirates. I feel like we don't go too much into the legends in either of the rooms. And this room, we're taking all our inspiration from kind of star maps and sextants and all of those kind of navigation. It is wondrous that we traveled that way. And use the stars to get by. And all of those things are influencing how this room comes together. So when you stop to take a bath or a shower and you look up, there is a star map. We built this beautiful wallpaper made up of these. I think they're from like early 19th century illustrations of star maps and constellations that have the sort of animals and moments painted into them. And they're dotted around the room to give you, it should feel as themed as the rest of the spaces. And you're seeing more of the story and learning more of like pirate lore, but it's not too intensive. It's more of a sort of, I guess, homage to the kind of wonder of traveling by the stars, and still feeling like a captain because you've brought in all of these sort of grand furniture pieces.
Absolutely. There's luxury there that I can imagine having a decent bath in
Yes,
there.
not every hotel can do that.
No, absolutely not. I would say I do want the little toy boat. That'd certainly be part of my experience. So whoever put that into the design, congratulations. It's so good. But it's so beautiful. And as we said, sometimes bathrooms are kind of left behind in terms of the design within the themed resort. They are seen as functional rather than space to add storytelling, and I think that's what's beautiful about what we've done here. Victoria, I guess one of the things that is kind of posed at this stage of a development of a theme resort is the idea that these are pretty pictures, but how do you take it into the real world? In terms of our process to bring these to reality, what steps do we go on to make sure we can prove that these designs can exist in a theme resort once it opens?
Well, great question. I think that really sits down with the team that you do have in place. I think it really all depends on who you engage from your sort of specialists, because there's y- there's so many different trades and individuals that all need to be involved in sort of executing this to make sure that it's good design. Sometimes I think when you don't notice when something's wrong, when the detail is done so well. So it really takes a lot of the individuals in the team, from specialists, from interior designers, from picking those materials to lighting specialists, to all of the different ists to sort of pull it together to make it feel cohesive, and so that it all speaks from the same sort of original intent. So there's a lot of sort of consultancy that happens, and make even to like operationally all of those considerations that you need to take on board. So really working with your client and working with your ops team to make sure that it's also going to be long lasting and robust enough for long years to come, hopefully, that where it's still going to be usable and still feel as if it was when it first opened. So there's a lot of coordination that sort of requires in the next stages. Obviously, this is a great concept, and um, as much as we love it, we would still like to keep that intent moving forward when we get down the line, and going through those details of construction details, and really trying to iron everything out to make sure that it still works and feels the same as we've intended it to.
And in more recent theme resort projects, we've certainly been that guardian, haven't we? That creative guardian to kind of make sure that that initial thought, that initial design and narrative is pulled through into something in reality.
Absolutely. It's always the same thing. It's like there's always going to be changes along the way, but if you have someone that was there from the start that understood the intention behind the concept and the creative and the vision, I think then the design will always evolve and change depending on what's happening in the world or what you can actually source and all of those things. But it's about then making sure that that vision still stays true to what the original intent was, and making sure that you're still hitting on a few of those touch points. And I think that's something that we do really well, in making sure that we stay with the brand and making sure that you stay with the ethos of whatever is that story that we're trying to tell.
Fantastic. And something to finish on for both of you. So I'll come to you first, Victoria. What is the one moment that you want to live within this room that we've designed?
There are, it's such a, all of it is so good. I think Alice and I did touch on it just a little bit in terms of there's so much visual cues in the spaces that is like a universal language that we all understand. So there's things like, the Delft tiles with pictures represented, that everything that you see here, it tells some sort of story. And I think that's the beauty of is just like the detail that you're able to pick up on when you even first enter the room, I think is such a magical moment to be able to have those touch points, to be able to gravitate towards.
You are certainly our interior design geek. I can imagine you looking at skirting boards as soon as you go in through the room.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
like coping, put some ceiling there, like all of those, the skirting missing on this wall, let's get it in there. So absolutely, those details always make the spaces.
Wonderful. And how about you, Alice?
I do agree, it's hard to pick. This was like a real passion project for me. So much of this is just so up my street, and it was such a joy to do. But I do think we've kind of touched on it in that sort of main sort of parents' room, the captain's quarters. All the stuff we could do in terms of show lighting with those windows, I'd love to see in place. We've got some really nice light fixtures in there. There's like a Tiffany style lamp with sort of pirate themes and the two windows. And I think to be in this room in the evening when maybe something's going on behind those windows, maybe there's cannon fire or a storm, and seeing it in its kind of full potential, which we've all visualized in our heads, but we maybe haven't seen it yet. I think I'd love to see that.
That sounds amazing.
And
Do you
Robbie,
know?
what's your favorite?
Yeah.
Oh, I knew you was going to say that. I
Tell us
can't
what you
choose
like
either.
most.
I was here to set the questions, not answer them. I certainly think the kids' or bedroom. I can imagine sort of with my two girls, switching off the big lights, putting on the ambient lighting, settling down in one of the bunk beds, and then reading a story before bedtime. And it'd be amazing if there was kind of like
Well,
a leather bound book that was kind of Pirate Cove themed, and it had been leafed through, and maybe there's some pages missing, and just that idea of reading a book, and maybe you have to blow the dust off it. Gosh, that'll be something different for the cleaners to think about going into a room. Don't dust the book. But yeah, I think that idea of just before you go to sleep having one last adventure before
I
you
think you
rest.
just
I
said that,
love that.
Robbie. I think the idea behind this is the rooms were supposed to spark adventure. Whether you choose to do it or not was entirely up to that individual. But I think we intended it to be that space where you wanted to go on that next adventure. You wanted to do that next big thing, but you wanted to do it together. And I think that's the main intention for what we wanted the space to be, is like it's to inspire the next generation of pirates and to want to do it as a community and to whatever community means to you. And I think that was the beauty of it, is like it's that space to do so if you choose.